Tonight, obviously, we would have hoped to have had, a presentation with a marquee at the football club, etc. We had big plans, but unfortunately, that got swiftly changed. We've left it as long as we can to finish off and round off what really should have been a successful season. Finishing up. Yes, relatively, it was quite successful. But obviously, COVID has put a stop to a lot of our ambitions. So, moving on with our award show, there's an overview of the awards that are on display this evening. So, we've got a director's player, a goal of the season, the Golden Boot, the Jim Bubb Clubman Award. And I'm sure Doug might say a few words about Jim Bubb. The manager's player, supporter of the season, the loyal fan club player of the season. And the player's player. I'm going to ask Doug Smith to say a few words about the season. He's going to summarise the season, what's happened, and then we'll move on with the awards from there.
Eventually we've got there. So good evening one and all, and welcome to this rather surreal 2019-2020 presentation evening. We've all seen the players' question and answer sessions arranged by the new media team. If I may, to set the scene for this evening with my own look back on last season's events. I'm sure Ben and others will go into more detail, but here's my own personal overview of the 2019-2020 season. From way back in August, with the gaffer turning up late for the first game away at Whiteleaf, where he was at a wedding, to the final fixture home to Sittingbourne on the 7th of March, the 2019-2020 season will be remembered for one thing: it never happened. For the 56 spectators who watched us win 5-3 at Three Bridges, to the 831 who watched us beat Whitstable 3-0, one thing is for certain: it did happen. Yes, there were highs, and yes, there were lows. There always are. But if there had been a few more highs early in the season, we would not just have been in a playoff position, we could well have been challenging for the title. However, ifs, buts and maybes count for nothing. Facts, however, do. 17 goals scored in the first 3 months compares to 22 goals scored in just 2 months later in the season. 20 goals conceded in the first 3 months compares to just 12 goals conceded in 3 months later in the season. We'll quickly skip past the Whitstable and Whitehall away period and move swiftly on to October, November and December, with just the one defeat away at Sittingbourne spoiling a run of 8 games with that just one loss. If you're going to make a winning start to a year, it might as well be with a 3-0 home win over Whitstable and in front of 831 fans to boot. Cray, Gussie and Chichester all fell by the wayside before a superb performance against Hastings gave us 13 points for the month. 2 wins and 2 draws at the start of February coincided with reports of something called coronavirus stroke COVID-19 winging its way towards us. And following our 2-1 victory over Sittingbourne at the beginning of March, a new word entered into our everyday conversations: lockdown. Fixtures were halted, and despite being in the playoff positions, our dreams of promotion were brought to an abrupt halt when the powers that be decided to declare the season null and void. COVID-19 turned out to ruin and devastate lives and livings of thousands of individuals and businesses, including one of our own, when it took Jim Bubb from us. We will bounce back, we always do. It will be hard, but with the full team of directors, managers, players, backroom staff, supporters, sponsors, and the hard workers that HBFC have in place, just like Arnie Schwarzenegger, we will be back.
We're now on to our chairman, who it wouldn't be the same if he didn't have a Stella in his hand, Stuart Fitchie.
Doug, thank you very much. I feel quite embarrassed now because that's like head and shoulders what I'm about to say. Obviously, coming in June, Ben's put himself a team together, which turned out to be a very different team we saw at the end. That kind of showed for me my intent, Ben's intent, the intent that we probably owed the players. So to end how it ended, very sour. I would have loved to have seen it out. Obviously, as Doug's mentioned, it was bigger than us. For me, it's unfinished business. I want us to roll into next season. We're not there for taking part next season from my side. So I really want us up there. I've learned that it's a good idea at the beginning to turn up in a tracksuit, but when you have to go into a boardroom in a tracksuit, it doesn't look good. I learned that at Cray Valley. I just want to take the stigma out of what the kind of normal chairmen do. I know I'm probably one of the younger ones, and it's good for the game, I think, but I kind of have to respect the chairman title at times. So I'll be taking that as a lesson learned into next season. You know, I've learned a lot about the teams over the years. It was going to grounds that I'd never known or all that kind of stuff. So going into next season, a lot more educated. I think Ben's, you know, I speak to Ben every day. Want to get a good plan in place for next season. So a few updates in terms of the club over the closed season. I mean, there's been no football, but there's no doubt of works that's been going on around the ground. We took delivery, as some of you may know, of a new tractor and mower and attachment. That's really going to benefit you guys next season. We've got a plan in place for the pitch. I know it wasn't up to standards at times last season. Can't blame the groundsman because he had inadequate tools. But next season we are very, very well prepared. We took delivery of our topsoil, and that's going to be going down on Monday. So I'm very confident that you boys will have a very nice playing service for next season. All I'm going to say is all about the experience for the fans, for the players, for me, and yeah. So I applaud his efforts through the season. Overall, for me, you know, it didn't start particularly well. It finished, we was on a great run. It finished great. Circumstances weren't great, but it just, for me, it's a point to prove for next season.
A couple of words from me, and then we're going to move on to the awards. I know that's what people are here for tonight. I'd like to thank the supporters. I think our support is one of the best in the league. Every club says that. I genuinely think when they are positive, when they are, you know, fully supportive of the team, they can be as good as anyone in this league. Our average attendance is pushing 400. Had we finished the games off, we would have got over 400. That would have been second from step 3 downwards, only to Folkestone in this county. So that just gives you a sort of scope of how big we can be. In terms of our season, I know Stuart's and Doug have alluded to the fact that, you know, we brought in players as we went. We started the season from scratch. We come in late notice. It all literally, we had 3-4 players that were with us. You know, and there were question marks over if some of them were good enough to stay with us. You know, so it was a massive rebuild. I'm just going to list you the names of the players that probably only played 60% of the season. Tom Colton, Ryan Cooper, Big G, Callum Adonis-Taylor, Anthony Edgar, Junior Akinbare, JJ Noel, Patrick Nzuzi, Dan Carrington's another. There's a list there of names that players we signed during the season that had we had that group of players from the start of the season, I firmly believe we would have been a lot higher than where we were. And where we were when it finished, you know, we were in punching distance of the sides that were at the top there. So I think one way to sum it up is that I think we've been on a bit of a journey, which is cliche in itself. But, you know, the whole club has been on a journey. It's been a massive effort from everyone behind the scenes, the players, etc., to actually put the club in a position where we could push for playoffs, we could push for promotion. And I know for a fact that, you know, the chats I have with Stuart, as boring as he is, I get it in the ear that, you know, all he wants to think about is automatic. He doesn't want to hear playoffs. And, you know, talk is cheap. It's about us putting the foundations in place to do that. And I think this season, you know, there's certainly unfinished business to go on and actually achieve those ambitions.
Between the 7 directors, we've had a chat and there's been a vote. I can't give too much away to begin with because it'll make it obvious, but it's a player that matured throughout the season. Didn't really know too much about him at the beginning of the season. I don't know if he knew everyone here, and I think he's got to know a lot of the boys off the pitch, which has helped him as well as everyone else on it. He has played a very important part in games, and he has produced some goals and general contributions at some vital moments in a lot of the matches, except his penalty versus Ashford. It's TT.
Ole, 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 ole. TT.
Now we're going to move on. The fact that TT's his data's run out has cost him the goal of the season, so we're going to change it. No, goal of the season also went to TT, and we're going to see why right now. Okay, moving on. Golden Boot. I think we all know who the recipient of this award is. It's really frustrating that he's got 24 league goals. His target would have been 30 plus, and I've said it since day one when we met Zach and he agreed to sign for us, that he would get over 30 goals this season. This is one of the things that I'm most annoyed about, as it stopped my prediction of a 30 goal target. And looking back, there's I've spoken to Zach about it a few times where, you know, there's goals that have been left out there at times. And I know Zach's probably the biggest critic of himself, but his goal tally for this football club has been nothing short of phenomenal. So Golden Boot winner is Zach Ansar.
Oi, oi, Zachy boy!
The Zach Ansar show.
You know that. Right to all the teammates.
We're going to move on now. The Jim Bubb Clubman Award. Now, Jim was obviously a lifelong Herne Bay supporter and volunteer committee member. I think, you know, when obviously he tragically passed away, you know, we saw the love that people had for him. We had supporters on the flyover of the local motorway with Herne Bay flags and flares and stuff. You know, it was a real fitting tribute from the Supporters Association to Jim. For those that don't know Jim, you would have seen him at this time of year down at the ground, literally in his speedos, painting walls, strimming, you know, the hedges, every bit of work that, you know, people wouldn't want to do. He was the one that absolutely loved doing it. He was doing it every day, just giving his life really to the football club. Wish Jim's family all the best, and we've named the Clubman Award fittingly after Jim Bubb. Stuart, could you let us know who's won the award?
Yeah, this guy obviously has been around for a while. I didn't actually know how much he was down the ground until this COVID kicked off, because I think he has only not been down the ground 2 or 3 days out of the whole time. Doing general maintenance, you ask him to do something, he does it. He can be an absolute headache, and he knows it. But I am pleased to say that the Clubman of the Year goes to Barry Tracy.
Well done, Bazza. Well done, Barry.
Bazza. Okay, now the most important award of the evening. Selected by, it's obviously manager's player, it's selected by the management team throughout discussions throughout the season. To be honest, there's a lot of players it can be, and I know that's waffle, but I'm going to waffle. There is a lot of players it could be. I don't think I've met a more humble player for his talents than this guy. Barely misses a training session, despite where he travels from. Attitude is absolutely spot on. And I heard people say when we signed him, all he does is score goals, which, yeah, we love that. I was happy with that. He won't do anything else. He won't contribute for you other than scoring goals. And I can firmly say, from the 70% of the season we had, this guy does so much more than that, and that goes to Zach Answer.
Oh! Whoa! Super, Zach. Super, Zach.
George, you doing an impersonation?
I try, man. I really do. I want to. I care, man. Love, man.
Thank you, G. Herne Bay are quite unique. They have a supporter of the season. Okay, so it's not just about the players at this football club. The supporters we said about earlier, fantastic. DL, come on and present this award for me, please.
So, supporter of the season this year goes to someone that not only is probably the first supporter to turn up on game days, he's got the biggest mouth at the club, so you hear him start every song off. But what people probably don't see from him is the time he gives the club away from game days. And obviously, being a local lad, I see it more than some of you would. But he took it on himself to hand build our changing rooms. He's currently building a committee room for the club. Supporters of the season is Sam Robson.
Hey! Woo! Go on, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I don't know. I'm a bit speechless, but no, seriously, like it's, I do enjoy it, because if you see like what's going on now, like what the season, but there's so much what goes on behind the doors of the supporters. Not just me, but there's so many people who've put time and effort, generally made up, and get ready for next season. It's going to be bigger and better.
Could you present the loyal fan club player of the season, please?
There's so many other players out there who could have quite easily won this. And it's probably the first time I've been following Herne Bay that you could probably pick 12, 13 players for this award. Normally there's one or two players straight off, but this year was hard. He is one of our own and will continue to be one of our own. So it's Super Dane Lawrence.
Daddy boy!
He's one of our own. He's one of our own. He's one of our own. Danny Lawrence. He's one of our own.
Herne Bay Football Club's players player. I know I was sort of joking earlier about the manager's player being the most important. It really isn't. Anyone that's played football at any sort of level will tell you the most important one is having that respect of your peers. And this person obviously has done that in abundance. Everyone will agree from this season there can only be one winner for these awards. And I've touched on it earlier. I think I've heard Big G call him the humble assassin before, and it really is. That is Zach Answer.
Woo! He's done it again, boy.
The team's best goal from last season. One of my 200 penalties, 100%. No, I'm joking. Funniest moment of the season. For me, on the pitch, the funniest moment was probably TT got fouled and kind of fell on his stomach, was lying down, wanted to see if he was alright. He ended up just vomiting like 3 times. Kind of nasty, but it was funny when he looked back.
That was the final award of the evening. That was, I think, the most coveted award you can win in a non-league club, other than titles, etc. But at the end of the season, players player, having that respect from your peers, is phenomenal. So fantastic achievement. Great season from Zach personally, but also the people, and I'm sure Zach will be the first to say this, there are people that contribute to that. You see the amount of opportunities that are created for him by others. And I know he said straight away, Casey, TT, for example. You know, it is very much a team game. So thank you to all the supporters. Thank you to all the players, all the sponsors that allow us to go and bring people down to the club. You know, the volunteers, everyone that buys a pint on a match day does make a difference. And hopefully now you're seeing that difference on the pitch instead of seeing a team, you know, fighting for relegations, etc. So thank you for this evening.
Thank you, Smudge, as well, yeah? Aaron.
Smudge, Aaron, yeah, legs.
Yeah,